Hi, I'm Danny with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look and I'm going to show you how to install the Pacbrake Alpha HD Pro air suspension system with internal jounce bumpers on our 2019 Ford F-250 Super Duty. So if you're somebody who has really heavy trailers you're pulling with your truck, or you're having extremely heavy loads in your bed, you probably realize that that weighs down on your truck bed, making handling very difficult on the highway. So getting airbags is going to solve that problem by leveling everything out and making drivability that much better. So one nice thing about this air suspension system is it has built-in jounce bumpers. So if you do ever bottom out with zero air pressure in your bags, those jounce bumpers are going to protect your airbag and won't damage them. Another thing too is this neighbor today, he opted to get a compressor, so that's going to fill both of them at the same time, which I do recommend. But if you don't get a compressor, you can manually fill at this back here. So if you're somebody who does experience that rear end sag or drivability issues, then I would highly recommend checking out these airbags if you're someone who does, like I said, have those heavy loads in your truck. Now, as far as the install goes, this is actually really simple. There is a lot of components to it, but it's minimal drilling in your frame, and it's a pretty simple setup. So you could probably do it in half a day or so. But if you're doing the full setup with the compressor and the airbags, or you don't have the time or tools, feel free to check out a dealer locator, and we can find a professional in your area to do it for you. But without further ado, let's get into the install. So the first step here is we're going to remove these jounce bumpers that are factory. So I'm going to get this 15mm socket, remove these two nuts here. Get this removed and leave the clip and bolt attached because we will use that for later. So now I'm going to get the airbag set up. First, you're going to want to take your roll plate and you're going to want to put that on top. You want to line up the 3 holes. So there's going to be 2 threaded and 1 larger one. And you want to get your air fitting. You're going to want to screw this on. So you get this as hand tight, tighten down. And then you want to go 1.5 more rotations. So now we want to put the top plate on with the countersunk side up. You're going to get those lined up. And you're going to get your corresponding countersunk bolts here. And they are going to have like an Allen key hex head here. We're going to tighten those in. So now I'm going to go ahead and torque these down to the specs of the instructions. I do have a 1/4-inch socket on my torque wrench, and I'm just going to put that fitting in there. So if you don't have a torque wrench at home, you can usually rent one from your local auto parts store, or you can pick one up from us at eTrailer. So with this flipped around, we're going to grab our roll plate. We're going to slap that into place, get our holes aligned, and we're going to get our bottom bag bracket. We're going to get that aligned as well. And they do come with 2 of these support brackets. We are going to be using the small one because we have the support blocks on the vehicle already installed. So we're going to get this short bracket on here. We're going to get our bolt, our lock washer, our regular washer, and get these hand tight. So now lastly, we're going to get our upper frame bracket. We're going to put our plow bolts in. So there are going to be a square fitting that will fit in this countersink side. So we're going to get those snugged down in. And we're going to take this to the truck. So now I'm at the driver's side here. I'm going to get our bracket and I'm going to push it up on those factory bolts. And you want to make sure it's pushed towards the tire as much as possible, so that's touching the frame on the top there. Now I'm going to take my bolts that came off of here and get those put back on. And now I'm going to get these tightened and torqued down. So now we're ready to get these put in place, but they are pretty thick to put in there. So one thing you can do is get this completely depressed of air, and we do have a piece of airline tubing that we have capped, and I'm just going to put that in there so it doesn't allow the air to refill it back up. So I'm going to use my body weight and kind of push this down. And get this installed. As you can see, it's now compressed. Another thing you can do is get a pull jack or a regular jack if you're doing this on the ground, and get that suspension lifted up as high as possible so you can slip this in there. Make sure my wires aren't caught in here. So you really want this as compressed as possible, because it is a bit of a struggle to get this in. But once you get it all lined up, you have the big slot for your factory bolt, and then the small slot is for the bolt we installed. So now we're going to want to install our leaf pack plate. So I'm going to put these two bolts in, and ideally you want to use the top and bottom holes, but if you can't, you can use the bottom two. Now I'm going to get this installed. So now we're going to go ahead and put it on, I'm on the driver's side here, so the left side of this U-bolt on this leaf spring. And we're going to go and put it in the corresponding slot on our bracket here. Get one hand tight. I'm going to go ahead and go to the other side and get my bolt in. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my bottom bolt in there as well. I'm just pushing this up so I can get some clearance. Get this through and my nut on. And the same thing on the back side here. And now we're going to get our nut on our plow bolt that we put in this upper frame bracket here. And I'm just going to get these hand tight for now. So now I'm going to tighten everything down. I want to make sure the bag is nice and level to the frame. It's not sitting at a severe angle here. I'm first going to tighten up the top ones going into the frame. And then I'm going to go and do the bottom ones, the bottom bracket into the bag bracket. And then the 4 bolts after that. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and torque everything down in that same order. So the passenger side airbag is exactly the same setup as the driver's side, same steps. But the only difference is we're going to put this heat shield up because that's the side the exhaust is on. So you have 2 that come in the kit. I'm going to bend these tabs to kind of look like this one, so that fits nicely around our bracket. So you just want to bend these up. And then I'll bend maybe 1.5 inch tab here. So you're going to want to get your ring, the small ring clamps that come in the kit for this upper part. And I'm going to get those wrapped around. And I'm going to want to angle it a little bit down so it's just protecting that airbag. And I'm going to tighten this down. Now it's time to install the fill valves. We would put these out and cut it in half to get 2 equal lengths and install both of these for each airbag. But today the neighbor got a compressor, so we are just going to install one, and we're going to use a T-connector to install them. But what I did was I took out the license plate holder nut here, and I just opened this up to 5/16 hole, and I trimmed a little bit of the back so I can get this air fill valve in there. So now I'm going to set this to the depth I want it. I'm going to leave a washer and a nut on the back side. I'm going to feed this back through. Get my washer nut on this side. And get this tightened down with a 12mm socket. So now I'm going to go ahead and run these air lines, and I'll show you how I ran them under the truck. So once you get this attached, I went ahead and ran this back to our airbags. I just kind of followed the wire harness, zip tied it to that, and I ran it to our T connector. Now this line will go all the way to our compressor, but if you don't have a compressor, this line would go straight to your airbag, and then you would have another fitting going to the other one. But for this one, I went to another T fitting, and this one goes to our other airbag. So now I'm going to put some air into the system. I'm going to just press up on these up arrow and fill up the airbags. And with those filled, I'm going to go ahead and test all the fittings with some soapy water, just to see if there's any bubbles coming up, and that'll tell us if we have a leak. So the little bubbles are okay, but if you keep seeing ones that are coming out, then you know you have a leak. And as you can see here, we do have a leak, so we're going to have to address that. So the part that was leaking was the NPT fitting on both these airbags. Now the instructions say to tighten it 1.5 turns, so I did tighten it a little bit more, but it was still leaking, so I didn't want to tighten it too tight. So I went ahead and backed them both out and put some Teflon tape on there, and then followed the instructions doing the 1.5 turns, and that fixed the leak. So I would definitely recommend putting this on there before you put your fittings in your airbag. So if you do decide to get these airbags for your truck, please feel free to let us know what you're using them for, what you're towing in a comment below, or if you have any tips or tricks on how to install them or how you like them, please let us know as well. And that was a look at the Pacbrake suspension system for our 2019 Ford F-250 Super Duty. I'm Danny with eTrailer. Thanks for watching.